Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Where one working mom and a stay-at-home dad help you navigate the nuts and bolts of the growing and dynamic world of homeschooling.
With a focus on early learners, like me.
All the ins and outs of building and maintaining your homeschool life.
Homeschool.
Find out tips and tricks to make things like this easier.
I'm reading.
And ultimately, enjoy educating your kids. And what's that last thing?
Have fun together. Did I do good, Daddy?
Yeah, you did, sweetie. Good job. Hello and welcome back to Homeschool Together. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have a chance, head down into YouTube, down into YouTube, and go ahead and hit subscribe, like, and follow us along as we're putting out more reviews and more vlogs and everything down there. And if you have a chance, we're kind of hitting we're starting our sprinting through the summer, and we know you have friends and family that are thinking about homeschooling, and what better to do than point them to a really cool podcast that might help them out, especially today talking about media. And we're going to continue on our media train. We did Netflix last week. This week we're doing Amazon Prime. We all know you have your Amazon Prime subscriptions that you don't use, and you watched enough of what was it? What's the hot show on?
Well, I mean, it was like Lord of the Rings,
Lord of the
Power,
Rings. That's right. Yeah,
which I
Rings
guess
of
is
Power.
coming out with another season. It's funny, yeah. It's like the media streaming service that most people have, and it's the most underwatched because we all have it for the free shipping, not really to watch things on Prime. But they actually have a number of good things on there, and
Especially the kids section.
yeah, this has been a really fun process because we've seen a number of things that we're going to be recommending over these next few weeks. But there's a lot of things we haven't seen, and
We're actually kind of excited.
yeah, like our list of to watch is growing because we're doing all this research about what would be the best educational content on each of these services.
That's right. No more Barbie shows on Netflix, Ariel.
Yeah, no, we have. There's a lot of good stuff to watch, and I think the reason that we're doing these is that there's just so much media on all of these different sites. It's really hard for us to find. To go through and find something that's appropriate and that's what we want. It's like, can somebody just give me like a top 10 list and I can just use that? So that's what we're here for, y'all.
We're trying, and we're also crowdsourcing. If you have watched something yourself that you really, really enjoyed,
Absolutely,
or you felt your learner connected really well with, feel free to put that in the comments below, or go leave a post on our Facebook pages. That would be great. So we just want to kind of like crowdsource and pull a bunch here. Hopefully you guys just share what you guys like, and when a family comes along and says, "Oh, what did Homeschool Together think about media on Amazon Prime?" And here we are, and you got a bunch of stuff and a bunch of recommendations.
Maybe I'll start a post on the Facebook group, and then when you're hearing this, I may have already started this post, where you can just kind of add your comments of your favorite content, because there's just so much. So we want to start out just like we did last week with Netflix with preschool. So our first one for preschool is Creative Galaxy.
Yeah, this is very much like a Daniel Tiger
Ooh, I
level
love
show.
Daniel Tiger.
Yeah, basically, they're it's centered around art, and if you think about art being kind of that thing is difficult to teach in homeschool and get inspired.
I don't know,
and
maybe it's just for us.
Yeah.
We have art time with art.
Absolutely. So basically, this is a show centered on the act of creativity, the act of creating art. I think they have like up to 3 or 4 seasons now on this. Pretty supposedly award-winning. Gotten some awards as well. And basically just going through social emotional learning, friendliness. It really has that like Daniel Tiger feel to it, where
I love that,
even the voices sound similar.
There's a lot of positive role models in this show, right? And it's always about giving our kids, especially our preschoolers, the words to say, right? Because they don't know how to maybe express their emotions or the things they're going through. So some of the preschool shows, more than just being educational content, are a lot about, those social emotional skills.
A lot of problem solving as well, like putting kids into certain scenarios that maybe they get frustrated or angry or upset, and how do I handle that and how do I respond to that? Yeah, like Daniel Tiger did a really good job with that, and it gives
them words, and it's like, oh, that's that situation, and of course, Daniel Tiger's got that little song, and every episode's got a different little song,
But yeah, Creative Galaxy has that edge to it as well with the art. I think that's the one. So if you're used to like kind of like a Bluey show or Daniel Tiger show where you start to bring some of those activities into your home, I think Creative Galaxy may be one of those. If you're going to some of those activities where you're learning things, but in the act of creating, in the show, they actually talk about a lot of like art techniques and things like that.
Right, and there's pre-reading things, there's colors and patterns and stuff. So this would be a great one if you've got a preschooler that you're starting to homeschool or getting ready to homeschool. This would be a great one to check out. So that's Creative Galaxy.
The next show that is on Amazon Prime that for preschoolers is a show called Tumbleleaf. And now what I think is really cool about this is it's a stop motion animation show. And
I love stop motion
animation. I think it's kind of like an underused art form because it is so difficult to do because it's so much work. It's so much easier to just crank out CGI stuff on computers and whatnot. But the fact that they take the time to do stop motion is, I think, that's very impressive from just an aesthetics point of view. It's something completely different, something you don't normally see. But basically, this is a show, I believe, if I'm right, I saw that they've won or been nominated for a dozen Emmys and stuff. It's like one of the most highly awarded show out there. And basically it follows this fox named Fig, and I think there's a caterpillar named Stick. And basically they're going around the world and doing things about the world, and very similar to the previous show that we just talked about, in that they're just solving problems, social emotional things.
Except this one's got a real science bent to it, right? They're teaching some simple science concepts through this. Obviously they got the positive role models and stuff. I would think that if your kids like Zoe and Sassafras, there's obviously not the magical element here that there is in Zoe and Sassafras, but the simple kind of teaching some simple bits of science, simple experiment stuff, it would be similar here.
Yeah, there's a little bit of pre-reading as well and kind of number recognition. So really playful in that preschool level. But I believe this is a show that might stretch a little bit beyond preschool, that you can probably bring.
Yeah, we were thinking our
kindergarten,
8-year-old would really like this.
like a second grader and everything might fit as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think this is a good one. So this is one if you've got multi-ages, you have young ones and kind of, maybe still early elementary, that this would fit into there. And I love early shows that deal with problem solving and especially deal with science, because a lot of the really early shows just don't really have the science bent. They're all about the social emotional, which is great, and some of the pre-reading stuff, but I love that someone's got some science in it.
Yeah, especially science, like Wildcrats that we've seen on PBS Kids and things like that. Yeah, so if you're looking for something that's maybe an analog to that, but a little bit more of a playful style and a cool animation technique, some anthropomorphized animals, I think this might be the one for you then.
Right.
Continuing on with the science aspect is the Goodnight Opie.
Right. So this is the Opportunity Mars rover. This is a documentary.
Opportunity, right? Opie or Oppie is opportunity.
Opportunity,
right?
Yeah. So this is it's kind of it's a documentary that talks about the achievement of sending this rover to Mars, and focuses on all the steps through and the tension of when they weren't sure if storms were going to take it out, and all the collaboration and teamwork that went into putting this together. So it interviews all these different folks who had roles in getting the rover there. We were going to learn about the geology of Mars, learning about discoveries in the planet's geological past, and then learning a lot more about NASA and how they're using this to explore Mars. It has gorgeous, the filming and the cinematography and stuff, and they did some really neat renderings of Opportunity on Mars, because obviously we don't have the overhead drone shot of Opportunity roving along Mars, but it was they've done a great CGI job of making that us kind of going in this exploring this new frontier. So really cool. So if you've got science or space loving kiddos,
space science, like if you're doing the Blossom and Root space science,
right? This might be a little bit heavy for the kindergarten set that does the Blossom and Root space science, but I think if you have a mid elementary, this is probably going to be fine, because there are some interviews with the engineers and things, and those might be a little bit more boring for some of those really younger kids. But the rest of this is just, it's got there's so much drama in it, and it's such an uplifting story. And anyway, I love science. So
I mean, sending a golf cart to a distant planet is kind of cool. Golf cart size thing.
It's groundbreaking, and so it's really neat. So if you got someone who loves space science in your house, that would be a great one. The next one we wanted to talk about is
it's just a documentary.
Called 2040.
Yeah, so this is a climate change specific documentary. So it's not a show. So it's just a documentary, and it's about a father kind of some of these documentaries, the documentarian tends to be the main character in the thing.
I'm looking at you, Werner Herzog.
And they tell a story or they use themselves as the centerpiece to then go and explore some aspect of the world. And in this case, it's a climate change one. So set in Australia, I believe, where a father kind of explores the idea of, what is my daughter's life going to be like in 2040, and what can we do now to have, better impact on the environment and be better stewards of the planet. Going around and interviewing other creators, showing aspects of what can be done with current technology, so we don't have to like invent future technologies. Like, what can you do now? It was pretty cool because it's kind of a positive approach a lot of times. So the climate change stuff can be very negative, like, oh, destroy, destroy, destroy. This one's very much positive, like, what can you do? What can we do? That type of thing. I do like more of those positive documentaries, especially with the younger kids, because I didn't want them to be as, scared of of these type of things.
Right.
And
this
more
is about opportunities, right?
Yeah, more about like a positive of approach, and also down to that individual. So it's not like you're sitting back waiting for somebody else to do something. It's empowering you and your community, and even just in your day to day, to find out what you can do. And I always like those types of approaches, especially around documentaries, because it can be more uplifting, and I think it can make a better. Sometimes documentaries are meant to like kind of punch people in the face, and some documentaries are meant to kind of grab your hand and pull you in a certain direction. So this one was more of the hand holding and beautifully shot. Really cool. A lot of cool interviews. So 2040, if you're looking for kind of an environmentalism, a show for kind of younger learners that has a science kick to it, 2040 on Amazon Prime.
Right. And this is you're going to go into things about urban gardening and solar energy, driverless transportation. So there's a bunch of different aspects in here.
A lot of different technological solutions.
Lots of energy things.
Yeah. And the shots on top of the windmills were really cool. Some of the underwater stuff. So if you kind of have like a budding marine biologist, there's some underwater stuff as well, because it's not just the land, but it's also the ocean. So there's a lot of great shots there. Really cool. So it's kind of a blend of mix of biology, technology, and it really just is one of the broad spectrum approach.
This would go really well with Build Your Library Level 1 with all of the the environmentalists books that are in there. This would be a great one to fit in with that.
So next one we have is called Science Fair.
Yeah, so it's like the Olympics of science. It's a
yes.
documentary about teens going to like the world championships of science fairs. So it's 70 nations are represented, and there's
Were they still using the poster boards?
Yes, the poster boards were still there. But I mean, these are kids, teens who are like looking to change the world. Some of these teens are going to go on to win Nobel Prizes. So it's really cool because it tells the backstory about these different kids, what their passion is, what they're trying to do behind their experiments. And one girl, they were talking about, they were like, oh, she's not trying to cure cancer, she's trying to stop people from getting cancer. Right. So it's just like big ideas. I think if you want to encourage your kiddos to really think big, this would be a great show to kind of inspire them if we're getting ready for some sort of a science fair or co-op or something. This could be really fun. But I think it's a really fun thing to see teens and how they might change the world someday.
So it's likened to that documentary that came out about 22 years ago, Spellbound. It was like the spelling bee one.
Exactly.
Where they're following those kids and all the struggles and the drama around the show, but also the aspect and the way they approach things. So in this case, it's about the science fair and everything.
Yeah. And we often find that like our kids love to watch shows or documentaries or whatever about other kids.
Yeah.
I mean, that really connects with them a lot more than an adult talking to them. So I think this is a nice one to check this out.
Well, and that's really cool. Is kind of a segue to that is that we've had an opportunity to do a little bit of basketball training with our daughter with an older a girl who's going off to college right now. And yeah, that could not be more true. Like seeing kids doing big things really inspire these young ones. And, just seeing our daughter, getting some one-on-one training with like a 19-year-old girl who's
who she's like, oh, that's a teen. And oh, she's so cool.
She's so cool. And I want to be like her. And really taking those cues and getting that inspiration and that kind of that mentorship. Watching kids do things like this will inspire your children. So I think it's a great one. Next one is the Dream Big, Engineering Our World.
Yeah, I just love engineering documentaries. We used to watch one. What was it called? Engineering
it
on
was
Discovery
like the
Channel.
Mega Projects or something.
Oh, well, we watched that. But remember Extreme Engineering? It was like 20 years ago. We watched it on Discovery. Anyway.
Yeah, there would be like the building an oil platform in the North Sea or something.
And we would just totally geek out watching this and really enjoy it. Well, so this is a short movie. It's only like 45 minutes. It's an IMAX movie, but it's on Prime. So if you have a big old TV, like we have big TV.
Or
a lot of people just have one of those big TVs.
Or the Apple goggle things or whatever.
Yeah. We were one of the people in the pandemic that bought a large TV because we could not go out to the movie theaters anymore. If you have one of those, this would be especially great. But this is all about engineers around the world working on projects, and it watches them as they're like working through the problems that come up and how they're making innovative solutions and things, like how they're making earthquake-proof structures. And, so it's talking about like the role that engineers play in society and, how our kids can be the next leaders. It talks a lot about engineers protecting people and doing things in terms of safety, bridges and buildings and things. And
innovation, ingenuity.
Right. So this is, if you got a
concepts.
STEM kid, this would be really awesome to watch. It's nice and short. So if you're not into, one of the longer documentaries, but you want to kind of inspire them with, again, that like you can have this huge impact on the world. I think this is another great one for that.
Absolutely. So going more with like kind of nature, this would be kind of a paleontology angle. This is Dino Dana.
Right. So there was Dino Dan, and then there was Dino Dana. And so Dino Dana is a show. There's also been a movie.
Yeah, there's a show and a movie. They both look exactly the same. So it's not like there's like a TV show where it's kind of like I don't know, almost like a Bill Nye type of thing. No, it's more akin to like Spy Kids or what's the show on PBS Kids? Right There.
Oh yeah, it's Odd Squad.
Odd Squad. It's very similar to Odd Squad, maybe a little bit more elevated than Odd Squad. If you watch that on, what's the line on Odd Squad? It's like Odd Squad, stop right there.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's what they always yell at the kids.
I don't know. You've heard a lot more of it in the background than I have.
Exactly. So Dino Dana is basically this young girl who can essentially imagine these dinosaurs in the real life. And so she goes about her life and she's just like this dinosaur whiz, and she's trying to solve these various problems and questions around dinosaurs. And it's not a nonfiction type of thing. It's a fictional show.
Right. But she doesn't imagine them. She has a special field guide that allows her to see them.
Yeah, I know.
Because this is an important point.
The CGI is not bad. It's very acceptable for children. I don't know if Spielberg would have nixed it for Jurassic Park, but the CGI is kind of fun. And I think there were even there's like 3 seasons of this thing. And there's sometimes the dinosaurs are acting like dinosaurs, and sometimes they're like dancing a little bit and stuff. It'll get a little silly.
Dino Dana is a very popular one among our friend groups. Everybody watches Dino Dana. Yeah. So I think this is a really fun one.
But then there's also a movie. There's a Dino Dana movie. Right, they made a Dino Dana movie.
But it's, basically it's going to teach kids about the dinosaurs' names, lots of information about them, what they eat, defense mechanisms, all kinds of things. So if you're doing prehistory, this would be a great one.
Yeah,
or if you have a dino-loving kiddo, this would be great. But if you haven't checked out Dino Dana and you want to step into that rabbit hole, here you go. This is, if you've heard about it, this is what it is. So definitely take a chance on that one.
Absolutely. So the next one we have is called Wild Isles.
Right. So this is, there's this whole series of shows, of documentaries, of which David Attenborough is the voice of this generation of documentarians. Yeah. I feel like they're going to someday, virtual AI his voice, and he'll just keep narrating these documentaries for hundreds of years because his voice is perfect. 2,000
years into the future, and they'll...
Anyway.
David Attenborough's voice will be dominating society.
So basically, I don't think I've ever watched a bad David Attenborough nature documentary. They are kind of all great. But this one on Prime is specifically about the British Isles, and it's all about the nature and things. So I'm looking forward to putting this one on our list as we do our around the world study again, and we get to the British Isles, because there's so many movies and things that are set in England and Ireland. There's plenty of media to watch, and we end up getting sucked into both Paddingtons every time. But I think it would be really cool to see all of this. And what I like is most of the documentaries that they do, they're hopping all around the world. They're going to be here in, the Asia Pacific region, and then over here they're going to be in Africa, and they're going to jump everywhere.
Even within the same episode, it's hard to knock them, lock them down on a certain area.
So I kind of like that this is just focusing on one real place and it goes into undersea life and birds and other mammals, big like deer and all kinds of things. Anyway, it looks really great, and I think there's still a lot of wild areas in the British Isles, even though it's been populated for so long, especially like up in Scotland and stuff. There's some really remote places. So anyway, I thought this looked really beautiful. It got great reviews. So what did it say here? Only 13% of woodlands remain, but there's still tons and tons of natural.
Yeah, I actually watched a documentary, like a video on YouTube about kind of like the forgotten rainforest in Scotland or something of that nature. Or there was another one where it was like, why is there this big split in the middle of Scotland? It looks like someone took like a marker or a knife and just cut it.
Like Hadrian's Wall?
No, it was like a glacier. It was like a glacier thing. It was like a Ice Age type of thing when it kind of retreated and whatnot. So a lot of cool things up in that area, and I think this one, it looks like it's pretty good.
Yeah, I think this is neat because even though there's only 13% left, there's still so much area that is wild, and it talks about the interconnectedness of the different ecosystems. And this one gives a lot of time to the impact of humans.
Cool.
Because they're encroaching upon that wilderness, whereas the other documentaries are mostly taken in really remote places. So I think this one's a fun twist on the David Attenborough.
Next one is kind of a social studies one. Fly Like a Girl. This is your classic girl power documentary. So this is a documentary, not a TV show, but it basically just takes you through the history of female women in flight. So it goes through the history, and then it interviews a lot of contemporary pilots. So like fighter pilots, astronauts and regular airline pilots as well, talking about the importance of women in flight, and that brings in a lot of kids. There's some kids from NASA that go to NASA space camp type of thing and whatnot. So a ton of like really inspirational female stuff in flight. So great if you got a bunch of girls who are looking to be stimulated into STEM, but I don't know if I want my daughters to watch this because I don't know if I want them to start flying planes.
Yeah, I want to start flying planes. Well, I think it's neat, and I love the history aspect of it because it's gonna. Part of the problem with history documentaries, and there's a reason why we didn't put a ton of history documentaries on this, is that mostly they're really geared for adult audiences. They would be, not that there's necessarily anything inappropriate in them, they're just, elementary kids are not going to want to watch that. There maybe older middle school kids, definitely teens, are going to want to watch these documentaries about World War II and all these things. But for documentaries that kids can actually get into, there's a much, the elementary kids can get into, there's a much smaller list. So I think it's cool that we've got a history documentary here that can, inspire some girls to, and maybe it's not to inspire them to fly, but just to do something that historically girls aren't known for doing.
Yeah, right. I mean, they do cover some of the historical, cases of female flying, I think in World War II, Amelia Earhart. So they do go back in time on that and show you that, it was a thing, right?
Yeah.
But how it's becoming more and more a thing now, and that's a good thing, and how other women are helping support other women in flight. So it's really cool, kind of a cool, fun girl power documentary.
Yeah, this is great.
So this is kind of a nice little list of things for you maybe to look at in the coming summer. Maybe you're got a long, hot summer, and you want to toss on the television and kind of inspire your children and get some learning in as well. We hopefully gave you a couple ideas.
Maybe some things you hadn't heard of before.
Yeah. The one I hadn't known about, the one that we looked into that I think we're going to dial up maybe this weekend or next week, I think is going to be the one with the
tumble leaf.
The tumble leaf one.
See, I really want to watch Goodnight Oppie. I think that looked awesome.
I'm a big sucker for stop motion animation.
Yeah, I know you love it.
I love it. It's my favorite. So one of my favorite styles.
Well, we're going to add both of those to our list. So hopefully you're adding some things to your list from this. And stay tuned. Next week we are going to be talking about Disney Plus. This was a hard one to narrow down.
Star Wars.
Because there's a lot on Disney Plus.
Lots of Star Wars. More Star Wars.
Well, stay tuned, everybody. Until then. Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time,
Happy homeschooling!